California already has the worst election laws in the nation, opening up all sorts of possibility for voter fraud. But coming up, I'll tell you how 3 new laws will make the situation much worse. Yeah, can you imagine a worse election system in California? It's going to happen unless we fight back. All that and more coming up. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and everyone knows that California's approach to holding elections is absolutely insane, devoid of any sort of integrity. Um, we have voter rolls that are completely outdated. We mail out ballots to everyone using outdated voter rolls. So everyone gets a mail-in ballot. That means that we have what we call orphan ballots that are created during elections, ballots going to people's homes and apartment buildings and homeless shelters, daycare centers, employment centers, where the voter doesn't even live. And so that ballot is sitting there on some counter or in some box. The third thing that happens is that they have legalized ballot harvesting. So I call that the Hoover vacuum machine approach of collecting ballots. They allow all these partisan groups to go out and collect or harvest ballots. Well, whose ballot are they collecting? I don't think they're collecting ballots just from voters. I think they're going out and getting all those orphan ballots that they created with those outdated voter rolls. And then, of course, finally, there are no real proper signature reviews, and there's certainly no voter ID in the state of California. All of this has added up to California having the worst approach to managing elections in the nation. I want to, before I get into the 3 bills that are going to make this situation worse, and I know you're sitting here thinking, how in the world could you make it worse than what California's already doing when it's a loosey-goosey approach to elections? I'll get to those 3 bills in just a minute, what we're doing to try to fight back. But for those of you who are in doubt about whether California's elections are being mismanaged, I would encourage you to go to the website electionintegrityca.com, electionintegrityca.com. And on that website at the Transparency Foundation is the Secure the Vote initiative for California that they sponsor. And this is a nonpartisan public policy organization. They don't take positions on candidates or ballot measures. They just want to make sure that elections, with this program, they want to make sure that elections are done properly in compliance with internal controls, federal and state law, best practices. I want to draw your attention to their report. Audit reveals evidence of voter fraud in California's 2022 election. When you click on that, it shows a summary of a report that had a 10-point election integrity scorecard that they applied to California. And California failed 9 out of 10 of the criteria. And you can read the full report right here. You can click on the full report. I really encourage you to read the full report. It's very lengthy. It's about 50 pages long. And it did an audit of the election and showed that because California does not have an accurate voter list, because intentionally they're keeping people on the rolls that are not eligible to vote, are no longer residents of the state of California. They fled long ago, and they don't clean up their voter rolls. And the county election officials are deterred from properly cleaning up and maintaining accurate voter rolls because they use an outdated voter list to send out their ballots. A lot of orphan ballots have been returned with improper signatures. And the signatures that have been rejected, the team audited those signatures and found that a significant percentage of them were voters that said they didn't vote. They no longer live in California. They don't know who returned their ballot. And a big, super majority of people that they tried to contact never actually got back to them. We don't even know if they are alive or even are real people. So I really encourage you to take a look at that report because it gives you the baseline for how bad things are in California. And what California elected officials should be doing is improving our election system, reforming it, in imposing safeguards and internal controls, not passing these following three bills that make things much, much worse. So let me go through the three bills. First up, one of the reasons why we have outdated voter rolls in the state of California is because in 2016, the state moved to a motor voter system. Yeah. What could be worse than your local election office processing voter forms, letting the DMV, with their ineptitude and incompetence, be the ones processing voter registration forms? And you get what you expect. The DMV screwed up the voter rolls. Numerous instances of erroneous registrations, fraudulent registrations, illegal immigrants being registered non-citizens. So we've got a whole gaggle of problems here as it relates to motor voter with lack of integrity, lack of internal controls. But now we've got this bill. It's Senate Bill 299 that would extend motor voter to all government agencies. I'm going to go through the bill in just a minute, but it's being sold by left-wing activists as a racism tool to combat racism. Here's the headline. California's electorate doesn't reflect the state's diversity. It's time to fix that. I would argue that California politics doesn't reflect the silent majority of voters in California. It's time to fix that, for goodness sakes. Potted plants are registered to vote in the state of California. I've heard of dogs being registered to vote in the state of California. But these asshats are out there shilling for this new Motor Voter Act that would basically say that instead of just the DMV registering people to vote, all state government organizations would be required to register people to vote. So if you apply for welfare, and remember, non-citizens get welfare in the state of California, they would be required to help process a voter registration form for anyone receiving any government service. You get a library card. Boom. You go in and ask for a permit for using a state park. Boom, you're registered. Next, they're going to say if you get a speeding ticket, you're registered. I have no idea, but the law itself is pretty damn broad. It says any state agency that processes a service for a person in the state of California shall collect name, date of birth, residence, signature, telephone if available, email if available, language preference if available, political party if available. They don't have to get that information, but they take this information and they will be required under SB 299 to submit it to the Secretary of State, who then will automatically register the person to vote. So the person isn't even aware that the information on the form that they filled out is now being used to register them to vote. They don't fill out a voter registration form. They're not even asked if they want to register to vote. It's just automatically done. At least at the DMV, you get to that screen when you're renewing your license or getting a license, and it says, would you like to register to vote? Not anymore. SB 299 basically says we're going to harvest people's information and automatically add them to the voter rolls without their consent, without their knowledge. Oh, they say that part of the bill is to send a little postcard to people saying, oh, guess what? Surprise, you were registered to vote. Absolutely insane. Also, it says that if someone ineligible to vote is registered, that nothing can be done to prosecute them, and that the state will send them a letter saying, oopsie, so sorry, our fault, not your fault. You had nothing to do with this. What? Is that letter going to be in their file, when someone comes along later on and says, you illegally registered to vote, therefore we're now going to penalize you in this way or that way? The person can say, hey, I didn't know that I was registered to vote. And, then I complained and I got a letter. I misplaced the letter. I don't know. You think the state of California keeps good files? Look, these people are just trying to do what I told you from the very beginning was the intent of Motor Voter. Adding a bunch of phantom voters to our lists because their intent all along was to get automatic mail-in ballots out there. Because at Motor Voter, when you go and register to vote, you automatically get put into the vote by mail system. And now that's not even relevant because the politicians use the pandemic to create this bad law that says that we're just going to use an outdated voter list to mail everyone a ballot come election time. Orphan ballots, millions of orphan ballots are out there. There's no chain of custody at all. That's what SB 299 will exacerbate an already bad situation. The next bill that you need to know about is that as many of us are pushing the common sense reform of requiring voter ID for state elections, and more on that in a minute, some of the cities are moving forward before we can qualify an initiative for the statewide ballot and do this statewide. And they're saying, okay, we're going to require voter ID anytime a local city race or measure appears on the ballot. So you'll have to have voter ID in order to get a ballot for the local races, which basically is very clever. And I'm supportive of this because it would mean that in order for someone to vote, they have to have an ID to vote, for all the races on their ballot. I guess the state could print 2 ballots and give them 2 ballots based upon voter registration or voter ID requirements, but it's a start. Democrats in Sacramento don't like that. So they have a bill, SB 1174, to ban cities from imposing a voter ID requirement. Because right now, there's no prohibition on voter ID. It's just not required statewide. But cities like Huntington Beach have wisely decided to do voter ID as a local law. But SB 1174, sponsored by Democrat David Min, would undo that. Oh, by the way, David Min is running in Huntington Beach for Congress, and he doesn't want people to have voter ID in the Huntington Beach elections because that city is right in the middle of his district, and he's trying to prop up his failing campaign with this law. The third and final law that you need to be aware of to make California elections worse is this unionization law. Yeah, this is a law that is already passed. It's not being proposed like SB 299 and 1174. This is a law that was passed and signed into law by the governor that basically says that we will no longer have secret elections for union organizing in farms. And so this bill basically says that the union now can, instead of calling an election where each of the workers of the farm, in this case, would get a ballot and they can fill it out and secretly vote whether they want to join a union or not. Now the union can say, we won't be having secret ballots. You're just going to sign this form if you want the union. There will be no election. You have to sign the form, and then the union goes into place. What this means is that there will be immense pressure on these workers, peer pressure, bullying, threats, because that's how the unions, roll, for these workers to sign on to something they may not agree with. We've always had a standard in this nation that elections are secret, that your ballot, your vote is a matter of privacy. But this bill eliminates that. How soon before they expand this into all sorts of other walks of life, including even maybe our own elections? This is not something that's good. This is a bullying and intimidation tactic, and it's now the law. Fortunately, it's being challenged in court, as you can see from this AP article. Look, these are 3 bad bills. What we're trying to do is fight to improve California's elections, improve the integrity of our elections in a number of ways. And here's how I urge you to participate. First and foremost, what do we do immediately? I'm asking you to go back to that website, electionintegrityca.org, electionintegrityca.org. Here it is, electionintegrityca.org, the Secure the Vote Initiative. And I urge you to sign up to work in your local elections office. Don't just be a poll watcher as a volunteer, because you don't really have a whole lot of rights. When you're a poll watcher, you get told to stand in the corner. You can't ask questions. You can't interfere, etc. Instead, I want you to be the one processing the ballots. So the only way you can do that is to sign up to get a job, a paid job, by the way, in the election office in your county, because they hire seasonal workers to actually man the polling stations as well as process the ballots, check the signatures. And I'm very interested in making sure those signatures match. And that's why I need people with integrity like you to take those jobs. If you are interested, go to that website, electionintegrityca.org, click under here under sign up. And our team at Transparency Foundation will get you into a training program and help you connect to your local elections office. The second task that you have, the second way that we are trying to reform California elections, is my California Voter ID initiative. And this is something that's very important, very high priority for me. It's my top priority going forward after this election. And that is to qualify a constitutional amendment in California to require, number one, that we accurately maintain voter rolls. Number two, that we do a citizenship check on anyone registering to vote. And number three, that we require voter ID when you have a mail-in ballot or in-person ballot. Go to reformcalifornia.org and click under the Election Integrity Initiative. Do a few things. First, sign the petition. This tells me that you are willing to support this initiative. And when we get the wet signature phase of the constitutional amendment for qualifying it for the ballot, we will mail that to you so you can give us a wet signature. But you first must sign up on the online petition so we know how many people out there are ready for a starting point. Second, volunteer to collect signatures when we're ready for the wet signature drive. Go down to the bottom here and click under volunteer to collect signatures. And finally, make a contribution. We're going to need to raise $1 million to qualify our California Voter ID initiative. And so please make a contribution on that website at reformcalifornia.org. We cannot fight to restore the integrity of California elections without your help. So we got to stop bad bills like the 3 we talked about, and we've got to restore integrity in our election through the Transparency Foundation project, as well as our California Voter ID initiative. Get in the fight, take back our state. Until next time, Carl DeMaio, Chairman of Reform California. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and smash that notification button so you can stay up to date on all the developments in California news and politics. Also, please visit the website, reformcalifornia.org, for ongoing news coverage and to join one of our campaigns in the fight to take back our state. If you can, please sign up as a volunteer or chip in a contribution. This episode of Reform California with Carl DeMaio, paid for by Carl DeMaio for State Assembly 2024.